Spring rain outside and we gather here today. It really is my pleasure to welcome you all, our members of our campus community. I see so many faculty and staff colleagues, and especially the members of the Z. Smith Reynolds Library Board of Visitors. It really is a special day and a special event. You are going to hear from three of my very wonderful colleagues whose leadership spans the past, the present, and the future of one of Wake Forest's most treasured institutions, and that is the ZSR Library. As a historian, I have always been drawn to the relationship between continuity and change, and the power of analyzing continuity and change and the insights that it can give you. And in this moment, we get to reflect on ZSR's proud legacy and look ahead to its exciting future. So I can't think of a more fitting trio to lead us in this conversation to talk about the role of the library and the ways that it is in service to the mission of Wake Forest and how it has evolved over the last 2 decades, and we think will continue to evolve. We know it will evolve, but what we might project in the ways it will evolve in the years ahead. So I'm going to introduce each of our panelists and then turn this over to our moderator, John Berger. Okay. So let me begin by introducing Dr. Lynn Sutton, who is to my right, to my left, and to your right. Lynn served with the greatest distinction as Dean of the ZSR Library from 2004 to 2014, and then as Vice Provost from 2014 to 2017. At the time, I was a faculty member when Lynn came here, and then I was an administrator, a dean myself. All that time, I saw firsthand how Lynn really transformed the role of the library at Wake Forest and beyond by reimagining spaces, elevating the work of librarians as faculty, bringing our library to national prominence, and not only emphasizing close connections with faculty and students, but ensuring faculty and students could do their very best learning and scholarship with strong library support. In recognition of her consummate leadership, ZSR earned national eminence with the 2011 Excellence in Academic Libraries Award from the Association of College and Research Libraries. Lynn is a past president of ASERL and a national thought leader in the profession. She remains a trusted colleague and a friend, a dear friend, and I'm so thrilled you could join us today. Thank you. Next, I'm delighted to introduce Dean Tim Pyatt. Tim has been a thoughtful and creative leader of ZSR since 2015. We became deans at the same time. During his tenure, Tim strengthened academic partnerships, developed exciting, innovative learning spaces, especially the Scholars Commons and Faculty Commons, recruited outstanding librarians, built new partnerships with the broader Winston-Salem community, and personally taught credit-bearing courses to ensure ZSR services met the evolving needs of our students. And I should say I had the distinct pleasure of being able to co-teach. Tim really did all the work, I'm going to tell you this right now, in a course 18 months ago. It is an experience I still cherish. Tim is always student-facing and responsive to student needs. Under his guidance, ZSR has created highly valued student employee scholarships for library student workers, and that has helped build a pipeline into library careers through the commitment to these students and also through the work of through the Wake Forest Fellows program as well. ZSR brings new kinds of commitment to the student community to Wake Forest, and some of the creative examples are inaugurating board night, for example, an evening of board games to help students have fun and unwind, and Cozy Fest, another partnership with student organizations built around tea, crafting, and music. ZSR has added workshops to help undergraduates, grad students, and faculty organize their research with open source software, hosted the annual ZSR Graduate Student Research Retreat with sessions on time management, copyright law, and writer's block, and sponsored the Sam Gladding Writing Experience for faculty, staff, and student writers. Tim himself created a competitive process for ZSR faculty and staff to secure funding for library-based innovations. Last year, this resulted in a wonderful 4-part workshop series supporting new faculty. Tim's also, through a steady hand, had the library build significant partnerships, from the acquisition and processing of Senator Richard Burr's papers to developing a pop-up history of Wake Forest shared locally and also to the expanding Wake Voices Oral History Project that documents student experiences. In short, Tim has picked up on Lynn's legacy and made sure that ZSR Library is a dynamic, inviting community hub, and frankly, the preferred locale for some of the most interesting lectures, talks, and discussions, not only on campus, but in Winston-Salem. Also, Tim is highly regarded in his profession. He received the prestigious Association of Southeastern Research Libraries Outstanding Leadership Award, only the second given in the association's history. And I've witnessed Tim's considerable leadership experiences and skills as a member of the Dean's Council. I've deeply appreciated all the collaborative spirit and unwavering commitment to our faculty, staff, and students. And I would be remiss if I did not add that Tim not just once, but twice really led the ACC Academic Consortium Smithsonian Festival of Creativity and Innovation. Oh my God! Bless you. Bless you, bless you. This meant that Tim he really shepherded these exciting projects that our students and faculty were doing in really innovative, creative spaces. But he had to sort of shepherd them and set this all up in the Smithsonian. And I'll never forget going for one of these events and seeing Tim hours before it started, literally making sure the materials were in the huge service elevators in the huge building of the Smithsonian, getting them up and down and all over the place. And he did this absolutely, absolutely beautifully. And Tim, again, in service to the university, even co-leads the commencement of the entire Wake Forest commencement. I don't know what we're going to do, Tim, when you're not there anymore to do those things. Tim's retirement after his upcoming sabbatical will be a bittersweet moment for me, and I know for all of you too. We're so grateful, Tim, for your leadership and for your many contributions to Wake Forest.
Helps to have a supportive provost.
And last but not least, I get the honor of introducing Lauren Pressley, who will begin her term as the next Dean of ZSR on July 1st. Lauren started her library career right here at Wake Forest, mentored by our illustrious, wonderful Lynn Sutton. We're thrilled she's coming home. We couldn't be happier. She joins us from the University of Washington, where she serves as Senior Associate Dean. Lauren has built a very strong national reputation as a forward-thinking and inclusive leader. She's a past president of the Association of College and Research Libraries. She is known for her vision, for her values, and for her ability to lead transformational change. I'm so excited to work alongside her as she helps write the next storied chapter of ZSR. I recognize that for many Wake Foresters, Wake Chapel is the center of the campus. But for me, the campus's center is, in fact, the ZSR Library. The leadership of this library plays a powerful role in facilitating the core mission of the university by creating a welcoming space and a supportive environment that nurtures transformative learning, that facilitates research, and preserving and creating knowledge in service to humanity is so, so important. So I thank you, panelists, for your leadership, past, present, and future, for all your contributions and those to come in making Wake Forest such a special university where the magic of learning in community, indeed the power of learning in community, happens each and every day. Now I'm delighted to ask our moderator, John Berger, Executive Director of the Association of Southeastern Research Libraries, to speak with us, to moderate this panel. John's been a longtime partner to Wake Forest, working closely with both Lynn and Tim, and now preparing to support Lauren in her role. His association has been a vital network of collaboration and excellence, and we're delighted, John, to have you lead us through today's conversation.
Thank you for the invite, and thank you for covering all the history in such great detail. It makes my job a lot easier. So, for those of you who don't know the Association of Southeastern Research Libraries, ASERL, we've been around since 1956. Wake Forest was one of our founding members. We are now 39 libraries in 12 states. We are one of the largest regional consortium of our type in the country. And I won't go into, happy to point you to the website if you want to, but I won't go into but Wake Forest has really been an incredible part of our activities for many, many decades. For those of you who do know me, you know that I'm not a trained librarian. I come to this from a nonprofit background, a nonprofit management background. So I needed a lot of on-the-job learning, and I'm going to harken back even a little further than the folks sitting here and recall and embrace the memory of Rhoda Channing. Rhoda I met in 1999 when I was first starting this and starting to figure out what ASERL is going to be under my leadership, and she was just incredible. She was an incredible mentor. She died really suddenly. It was just sort of a tragic change. But Wake was really blessed to get Lynn, who has genius-level emotional intelligence skills, to come in to really lead the library. And I'll leave it up to Michelle's introduction about all of her accomplishments. So. Lynn and I were lucky enough during her time as president to travel a lot together, so she probably knows my standard stump speech about what ASERL is as well as I do. But the one thing that was unique during our time, we went to the University of South Carolina, and I had my one and only contact with the supernatural. I saw a ghost in the Caroliniana Library, and Lynn was there. So. Not to be outdone, Tim followed in Lynn's footsteps, as was mentioned, serving as only one of two people who received the Outstanding Leadership Award from ASERL. I also want to call one of the things that, one detail that I don't think I heard was Tim's role in leading the Wake's Slavery, Race, and Memory Project, a really very important milestone for the university. I was trying to get used to the idea that Tim's not going to be here. Much like you were saying for the Smithsonian, Tim has always been incredibly helpful and supportive of me, of ASERL, and it's just sort of kind of hard to imagine him not being there. But I'm really excited to work with Lauren. Lauren and I knew each other a little during her first time, but her presence and profile within the profession has just exploded over the last 10 years. So it's really exciting and really quite a win for Wake Forest. So thrilled to be working with her going forward. So, okay, questions. I'm going to sit for this. So it's National Library Week. I'm not sure if everybody knows that, but it is National Library Week. The theme this year is the role of libraries, librarians, and library workers that playing in transforming lives and strengthening communities. So I'll throw this out to all three of you. How does that resonate you for the work of academic libraries and ZSR? Who wants to start?
I'll break the ice. Well, I think being part of our community is everything. I know it's changed, but when I was here, we had a mission that said the mission of the ZSR Library is to help our faculty, staff, and students succeed. And that was all that we did. We asked our students and our faculty, what do you need? And then we did it. So if they needed to study all night, then we stayed up all night and studied with them. And if they needed snacks, we brought in snacks. And if our faculty needed some esoteric database so they could get tenure, well, then we did our best to do that. And I think that really paid off because in the end, they learned to trust us and to partner with us. And it got us to what we are today.
Yeah, Lynn, I think you really hit that just right, right on the right on point, because the being that trusted partner for campus, whether it's the students, whether it's different partners on campus, whether it's the faculty, knowing that the library can be a resource for them. And one of the things that I inherited from Lynn, which is something I strongly believe in, is and don't any of you current employees shake your head when I say this, is a culture of yes. Is that basically when someone comes to us, we try to figure out how to accommodate them until we get to the point where we actually can't do that. But it's always sort of the yes first. We don't think like, well, that's the craziest idea I've ever heard. Can we ever do it? And like, we'll sort of we'll problem solve it and then work with them and then develop that partnership where we can go. And I think that's kind of the with going back to the National Library Week theme. That's what libraries do. I think of the public library, some of the great things that they have done in supporting. I was fortunate enough to be on the Library Services and Technology Act board that does a lot of the re-grants for formerly federal dollars to the various communities in North Carolina. And they found a community that had irregular internet access, they would look for grants to be able to put a hotspot in a bookmobile, so they could take it out in the community. And that's what I think is really great about libraries and librarians. And I feel like it's the philosophy, whether you're in public library, school library, or an academic library, is being able to be there for your constituents and being able to really support them with what they need.
Yeah, and I guess building on both Lynn and Tim's answers, I think at its core, when I think about what libraries do for their communities, is that we're really about connecting people with knowledge. And sometimes that's building collections, sometimes it's digitizing or helping support Born Digital. It's in the classroom, it's supporting research through consultations. It's helping people understand the ethical nuances of publishing and producing and consuming information. So I think, broadly speaking, there's a lot of really core work that ties to every aspect of a university, and having liaisons in different academic departments, working with students who are just entering all the way through graduate, all levels of faculty. The libraries has a really broad perspective on the institution as a whole and where we are going, what gaps are like on the horizon that we need to anticipate how to fill, and are well positioned to help partner with others at the university to meet our community where they're going. So I think in terms of strengthening communities, it's both the work we do, and I think the way we're woven into the entire fabric of the university positions us well to be partners.
So we're here at a past, present, future event. So in your view, sort of looking back and then looking forward, how has the role of the academic library changed during your career, and how do you see it changing coming in the foreseeable future?
Well, I'm the oldest, so I get to speak. You know, I think the role is actually remarkably the same, in that I see the role of the academic library as connecting the people who need the information with the information, the sum of intellectual content, intellectual knowledge gained through the ages, independent of the format that takes. So my first job was in 1976, and in those days, all of recorded knowledge was in bound volumes. So our job was to get the bound volume to the person that needed it. And then I came here in 2004, and it was in the age of where electronic resources were primary. We were making that transition. And I remember some faculty at Wake Forest said, we don't really need the library anymore because we just sit in our offices and access our journals that way. And I said, well, yes, and we pay $2 million, so you don't know that you're getting them you think you're getting them for free, but we actually pay for them. And so, but it was still the same job. And now, I guess our role is to be, prompts in large language models or something, right? But it's kind of the same thing. It's a person has a need, and you, as a librarian, do whatever you can to fulfill that need.
I'll take a slightly different tact on that, because I started in the early 1980s in libraries. Well, if I go back to my student assistant days, that's actually in the 70s, but we won't go that far back. But I used to like to say to classes when I was teaching in library and information sciences, you could take a librarian from the 1880s and drop them into 1980, and they would actually recognize what was going on. They'd recognize the cards, and they'd recognize the books, and maybe it's Library of Congress or Dewey Decimal, how they're going through the shelves. But there was a lot of familiarity there. But if you take a librarian from 1980 and drop them into now, they would be lost. They would have like, where's the stats, where's all this stuff, what are these things, So I feel like, in some ways, one of the things I think changed for academic libraries is I think our jobs as librarians are a heck of a lot more interesting than they were in the 80s. Because I remember one of my first jobs was typing subject headings on a catalog card. Some of you may, library folks in here like that. And then occasionally I would sit at a service desk where we sort of sat there passively waiting for people to come to see you. It certainly was no food in the library, not legally at least. But what I like about today is the fact that we're just so much more interactive with folks. We're, a lot of the kind of more behind the scenes work has become it's, while still incredibly vital, a lot of it's really automated. So even we have folks in our resource services, the cataloging department now, who are serve as subject liaisons and are working directly with faculty who are teaching classes and have interaction while they're also working with faculty to get them those databases that they need for getting tenure and things like that, to figure out, problem solving. So it's just a much more interactive and interesting time, I think, to be a librarian. And so I actually think I'm actually happy that my career is now, and my career didn't end in 1980, because I feel like this is a much more interesting time to be a librarian. Sometimes a little too interesting, depending on what the news is. But so anyway, I'll pass to Lauren.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have a story that I've been thinking about a conversation that Lynn and I had. Because I remember in the early days of Wikipedia and blogs and like all this new technology, talking with Lynn, marveling at the stereotype of librarians being like resistant to change, but like all my colleagues were fully on board and very interested in learning about this and what it meant for our users. And Lynn was like, but Lauren, we've always had to adapt. We went from a card catalog to an OPAC. Like there's always change in the information environment, and that's something that people who work in libraries have to be really good at. And that story has sat with me as I've shepherded lots of changes through different places. And I think when I think about how academic libraries have changed, the thing that I really hold to is that the values stay the same. Like, we have a code of ethics, we believe in privacy, freedom of information. We hold to the values, and then we adapt to the time. And I think that is where the change is, and it shows up with these large language models and whatever new rules are coming out, but we're always applying these values and principles of the profession to whatever the information challenge is.
So for Lynn and Tim, what do you see as ZSR's biggest assets that supported your vision for the library during your tenure as dean?
So, I think we should answer it at the same time, because we have not rehearsed this, but
I hope it's the same.
I think we have the same thing, because I'm going to say the people.
The people! It's the people, stupid. Yeah.
Because it's one thing. It's great. People think being dean is this sort of all-powerful position. And I had one of my great mentors, Larry Alford, who's the dean at University of Toronto, said basically being dean means you have the power of persuasion. And so you really can't get anything accomplished without having really great, talented, and creative, and innovative, and all the above kind of things that are the folks, the librarians here at ZSR. In fact, for me, that was like one of the most intimidating things when I came in, is that Lynn had hired such a great staff. I'm like, I can only mess this up. So I was really fortunate to inherit that talent base, and I hopefully have continued to build upon it as we have brought in some new folks. But it's, we can't really, we can have ideas, but actually the better ideas are the ones that you bring up to us, and we're able to help build and find the resources to support. And you're the ones who really do the innovation and the creativity, and we try to make it happen.
So I just want to expound a little bit, because I came here, probably going to cry, came here in 2004 in August, and I met all these wonderful people who were so smart and had such good ideas and loved this library and loved the campus, loved Wake Forest. But it's like they were all bottled up, and there was nowhere to go, very little to do. And so there was very little money, for one thing. And so I made it my mission to somehow get the resources that we needed to let them be the best people that they could be, because Lauren was a microform clerk, right? And Kristen, we could only order office supplies once a year because we didn't have any more money, and you couldn't order a new pencil until it was like this big or something. It was crazy. So fortunately, 3 years later, Provost Tiefenthaler came, and we started getting the resources that we needed to build this auditorium, which was Mary Reeves' idea, by the way. And everybody got to say what they thought would be in the best interest of our students, and that's when things really started to happen. And so I just thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for being the special people that you are, and having all the great ideas, and I love you all.
So before we sat down, I said, please no one-word answers. So I'm wondering how Lauren's going to say, what do you see as ZSR's biggest assets?
I know. I felt like I should just chime in with everybody. So truly, I have joked with people over the past 12 years that by leaving Wake when I left it, I had ZSR as like the platonic ideal of a library in my head that I could just carry with me as like the true north. So, and when I'm thinking about that, I, like the rest of my panelists, I'm thinking about the people. And I work in a much larger environment right now. It's a very different dynamic. And truly, people on campus think the building is the books. It's a building full of books. And they don't see the hundreds of people in that case that are building the collection, cataloging it, making sure you can get it off the shelves, working this public service, coming up with ideas for program, teaching the class, like all the things that matter that make the library really sort of the heart in many ways of the intellectual life of the university are because of the people. So like my panelists, that would be my answer, the people.
The same, but from 3 different perspectives. That's great. So, Lynn and Tim, did either of you feel like you left anything unfinished on your wish list when you retired?
The building. Yeah, I mean, we love this building. It is beautiful, but it is 1950s our infrastructure. And in the old days, we didn't have, we weren't allowed to participate in fundraising at the very beginning, and so that changed eventually, and we did a lot of things like this room, like the atrium, like a lot of things have changed, but the basic infrastructure did not change. Now, Tim will say some things this summer are about to change, but we need a new building, and it's time. So, Lauren.
Yeah, I'll sort of twist that around differently. The building is definitely, because between the two of us, we've done 3 master plans for renovation of this building. Some of the elements which have been funded, and some of which still remain to be done. The one thing I would say that I really we thought, I'm looking at Tanya, we thought we were at the goal line, trying to really expand our special collections and archives program, and it's one of the things that I think is really, I really hope to get us a little further along. We've done much better, thanks to many people here in this room. We've done much better about fundraising for special collections. That was one of the goals came in, is that I came from institutions where fundraising for the library, you had to get people to give to other areas of the library because I always wanted to give to special collections. And I was shocked when I came here. There was no history of supporting special collections and archives. And so, thanks to Tanya and her talented folks, we have really built that up. But we still need to have the programs to go forward. And as Wake Forest is entering and looking towards its bicentennial in 2034, again, this is another thing that to really highlight is that kind of history of the university. So that one thing, and that doesn't mean the rest of you in the room that I love you all too. I want more curriculum expansion. I want more electronic resources. I want all this. There's lots of other things. I mean, I could go through and do a catalog list, pages long of things that I would still like to get done, but got to leave something for Lauren.
So how did you feel that, again, Lynn and Tim, that you set your successors up for success? I mean, this event obviously is one example, but yes.
I mean, basically, I tried to stay out of Tim's way. When he came on board, I was in another office in the university and invited him to, ask me anything, but I realized, I did what I could, and my time is up, and now it's your time. And I remember you saying to me, we're going to do some things differently. And I said, well, I hope so. That's why we hired you. So I imagine the same will take place.
Yeah, Lynn was really great. It could have been a potentially awkward situation when your predecessor is still on another role on campus and you're working together and different things through the provost office. But Lynn was great, and she was really great for advice when I needed it, and then also great at not giving advice when I probably did need it. But it was I felt like she really had done a lot to set up. And again, I talked about the people. I inherited a full cupboard. In fact, that was like one of the most intimidating things when I came in, is there was like no glaring problem. One of the things when you come into a job is you want to have something to fix. So we did do a lot with fundraising. I mean, one of the things that I feel like is really is good is the board of Board of Visitors. We started off as a Council of Advocates. Having that kind of support network, that is something that really Lynn had under her last year, the Council of Advocates started, and we've really grown into being a full Board of Visitors, has really offered a lot of support and creative things. And so I think that's one of the things I feel like one of the reasons why I was really happy that Lauren could be here today, because I wanted to see a sort of a smooth transition in that kind of leadership, because the Board of Visitors here has been such a valuable resource for me. I always say I have like 3 really key advisory groups. I got Catherine Shaner here, who's chair of the Library Planning Committee, which is a university level committee. So that brings together primarily faculty, so I get that kind of voice. We have the ZSR Ambassadors, which is a student group, which gives me lots of input. I actually have my every semester I have a town hall with them, and that's actually next Monday. So I get these great sort of support things there. So I think one of the things that I hope will set you up for success is sort of that legacy of building those connections for you, and particularly having you here this for today and part of tomorrow is a real boon.
So thinking retrospectively again, do you feel like you encountered any grand challenges during your tenures? And if so, how did you manage during those challenges?
I suppose we did, but I mean, looking back now, it doesn't seem horrible. I mean, we lived through, in comparison, we lived through the 2008 recession, but as I recall, Michelle, you could help me out here. Wasn't that when Wake Forest increased its freshman class?
We began to increase, and we didn't rely on our endowment in the same way.
Yeah.
From the university.
Right.
So we were doing okay. We did great hires during the recession.
Yeah, so I remember whereas other libraries were having a really tough time, we miraculously did not have a really tough time. So I'm going to pass on this one.
Well, the easy answer for me would be the pandemic, but that was sort of like, everyone had that, so that's sort of like, I won't take that kind of as a cop-out. The other answer I thought about for this one is that, again, Lynn didn't leave me any like glaring things to fix, and it's always the nice thing when you come in, like, what is a thing that I can show my worth for? So, probably the biggest challenges is just, making sure that we keep up. I would say in universities, probably the only place that changes more rapidly than the library is maybe information technology and the support, trying to keep up with that. But we're right close in hand, and I think that's always, there's never a point in libraries that you can sit back and relax. You're always having to think ahead, making sure what's next. You can never, there's that you always want to make sure you're being relevant. And the landscape, particularly around electronic resources, I look at some of my folks here who work in that area. Thank God I got great people there to keep me up to speed on all those kind of issues as well. That I think is part of the biggest challenge, is making sure that we're keeping up with, because the students and the faculty are going to pass by us if we don't stay up to speed on it, and we're not going to be offering what they need to be successful. So that is an ongoing challenge.
Yeah, keeping up with expectations is really, it never ends. So, all right, last question for Tim and Lynn, and then we'll turn to Lauren. So, any advice for Lauren as she takes on the role as the next Dean of ZSR?
I would say lead with love, and I know you will.
And I will give the advice I have is actually advice I got coming to this job. Is a lot of times when we're, head of branch libraries, as I was before I came here, or you're an associate dean somewhere else, you're the fixer, you're the person who goes to that, you've got to do the problems quick and things like that. One of the things I had to learn as dean, and again, this is actually something that I referred to Larry Alford, who I'd worked with at UNC and then had gone on to be the library director at University of Toronto. He gave me as advice was, you're used to being the problem solver and get it done quickly. As dean, that's not always the right thing to do. You've got to let situations unfold. You've got to gather information. You've got to hear all points of view. So my advice I would give is don't feel like you need to, when things come to you, don't feel like you've got to solve it immediately. Don't feel like you have to do everything all at once. Sort of let things unfold in time. That doesn't mean there's not going to be urgent things you have to deal with. But when you have the luxury of being able to consider and think about things, chances are the decisions will be stronger and better and more inclusive of all more points of view. So That's my advice. Is try to slow it down when you can.
So, Lauren, and when we were planning this, I specifically said I didn't want to ask Lauren to, say exactly what she's going to do in her first 100 days or anything like that. She hasn't even started in the job yet, so let's give her a little bit of time. But sort of more generally, what attracted you to pursue this role?
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't really looking. For dean positions, there's often search firms that reach out. I always talk to a search firm. You learn a lot about the profession through that. It's always been really helpful. And when this search firm reached out, I thought, oh, this is going to be a different type of conversation because I care so much about this place. So I got to really quickly decide, am I a candidate or who are the best names I could give the search firm, because I really want the best person there. And as I talked with the firm and ended up going through the process, I just kept marveling that mental models and perspectives that I bring to my work every day are completely aligned with Wake Forest University and the ZSR Library. And I was sort of marveling, how lucky that there's this position that matches. And it honestly took me a few weeks to be like, oh, it matches, because this place taught me what an academic library is. It taught me what higher ed ought to be. I built my understandings about the work here. So it makes sense that I would feel that sort of resonance with the position, knowing the strong staff, knowing the national standing that this library has in the profession, knowing the value and importance of the type of education that Wake Forest provides. It was just so clear to me. So it was actually for me, a real joy and fun to go through the search process, to have that sort of opportunity to remember and reflect and see how the experiences that I've gained at really, really different types of institutions have actually prepared me well to sort of come back home, as it were. And that is why I was attracted to this role.
That's great. So sort of tagging on to that, sort of what experiences do you think prepared you for this role at this time?
Yeah, thank you. So I've there's a number of things. We all had the big COVID crisis. So I too have navigated that and some other things that are very, very challenging. So I feel like I've developed a resiliency and an understanding of how to navigate hard things. When I was able to serve as president for the Association of College and Research Libraries, I got to interact and meet folks working in all types of libraries in all parts of this country and a little bit internationally, and really developed a broad understanding. And I think having that allows me to ask really good questions. It allows me to hear more nuance than I might have heard otherwise without some of that perspective, and gives me ideas to offer. Not saying that any of them are the right answer, but they're things we can talk about. So I think that sort of that broad experience, that national view, having real deep administrative experience working in a variety of contexts means I feel prepared for navigating a lot of things, and I really feel aligned with this institution. So thank you.
Those are all the questions that I've prepared. So I will, before we turn it over to audience Q&A, I just want to say again how blessed Wake has been to have these kinds of leaders on your campus. ASERL has, as I mentioned, 39 different libraries of all different sizes and types, and I think Wake ZSR really sort of punches above its weight class when it comes to library leadership. So it's really quite remarkable. So, all right. So time for audience Q&A. And do audience members need to use a microphone? Yes. So do we have? Let me grab Lynn's microphone.
How does that work? Okay. My name is Martha Clinkscales, and I serve on the ZSR Board of Visitors. And the first thing I wanted to say is how remarkable it is to me that this is a nearly full auditorium with maybe 20 or 30 of the board here. And all these people come to give you a love letter to the leadership of this library. It's very touching and it's very impressive to be here today. And I feel very thankful to be part of ZSR. And the question I wanted to ask. Here. Oh, I do want to say it's just amazing. It really is amazing how many people would get that. So congratulations to all three of you. Now here's the question, the juice. So I just want to know, in the culture of yes, What is the memory of the hardest thing you had to tackle when somebody came and asked you that you really wanted to be able to say yes to, and you thought, this is totally insane?
I can answer that one right now because I'm looking at Rodrigo Castro, my head of public services, and he and I are dealing with a crazy request right now that tried to, on commencement weekend, to hold a gigantic party in the library, and how we can then flip it back to be able to be something that can be for suitable for families to come and take pictures for during commencement. We gotta talk after that. We just got this request this afternoon, and so we're trying to figure out how to make that work. But that was what's up. But the idea is like, I love the idea. We'll do our best to work with them to figure out how to make it work. But there's some real logistical challenges with sort of. They're going to have to meet us halfway a little bit on that. There may be a little bit of no in that comes up, but we're going to try to figure out how to make that party work.
Other questions?
So my name is Danielle Coe. I am an alumna here and a brand new member of the Board of Visitors, so excited to get your perspective. One of the things that I've been contemplating as I'm getting more involved here, and I'm very curious about your perspective on, is what does it mean to be a cutting-edge library in today's day and age? What do you guys think that looks like?
I'll go first this time. Yeah. So I actually think this is a really interesting question, because I do think 10 years ago there would have been an answer. Like, here's an answer that all libraries are going to try to do. Over the last 5 to 8 years, it feels like there's sort of a specialization within the field that I'm observing. And I look forward to seeing if this continues to be true or if it shifts again. But for example, I'm at the University of Washington. It just joined the Big Ten, which means the library joined the Big Ten Academic Alliance. And the libraries, all of those libraries are dealing with the exact same problems. There was a federal mandate a couple of years ago about making data open. None of us can do it the way that memo is written. We're too big. The data, there's too much data. It's not possible to do it. That is a different set of problems than an institution like this one. So I think that, in my view, observing what's been happening recently, I think we're going to see a little more specialization within type of library, and then there will be like best in class across those. So I would imagine in a school like this, there'd be a lot more emphasis on integration with teaching, probably, the teaching and learning mission. There's probably more the potential for, I don't want to like get out ahead of my skis here, but the potential for more bespoke academic like research support for scholars than you can do at a place that has to be scale at all cost. So I think we'll see some differences, and that is actually for me one of those like where are we going as a field questions, because I would say 10 years ago there was more clarity about what that answer would have been for all of them.
I will say one of the things that makes us kind of distinctive is that we are one of the few libraries that offer credit-bearing instruction that don't have a school of information and library science. And so that actually puts us in a really kind of great position on campus, because librarians here have faculty status. We work and that's not unique to Wake Forest. That is common in many institutions. But just because of that connection and how we're doing undergraduate instruction, it gives us a really kind of great connection with the other faculty on campus and the students, and puts us in a better collaborative space. And for me, that makes me an academic dean, that I get to serve on the Academic Dean's Council. Provost Gillespie talked about that earlier. And so we get to get that academic collaboration. I've not seen that. I mean, I've worked at Duke and Penn State and UNC, other very large research universities. I've not seen that kind of collaboration at the dean level that I see here. And that's one of the things I think that makes this kind of special, at least from where I sit.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm curious as to whether the role of the dean at Wake Forest has evolved in the sense of strategy or strategy delivery versus the need to be situational and perhaps cover some percentage of operations. Here I'm speaking obviously out of ignorance because I don't know what the key roles were over the last several tenures, but if you could speak to that, I'd be curious about where you see it going.
It has changed very greatly. I was hired as a director, not as a dean, for one thing. I reported to the vice president for student services for another thing, which was strange. Mary Fugel is here, and when she and President Hatch came in 2005, which is 1 year after I came, I like to say I was John the Baptist, and they were... I prepared the way. Anyway, but even then, I kind of laid low and observed, and when President Hatch hired Jill Tiefenthaler as his provost, everything changed, because I asked Mary if it would be possible if the library could change its reporting relationship, and she said, I think there's a very good chance of that. And it turns out Jill had requested that as provost. And so then everything changed. I initiated the faculty status for librarians, and that was like a miracle that probably would not have happened except at that time. Jill was new. Everybody wanted to please Jill. I was new. We were spending a lot more money than we used to, so people liked the library. So the faculty had to vote on it. The faculty agreed to it, faculty senate. And then in the course of that, I became a dean. And then Tim was just saying, the Dean's Council is a very close-knit group, very supportive, which is amazing because they're, pretty high-end egotistical people, but they do work together. And you then form relationships and partnerships, and you can do things together. So that was a very astute question. Thank you.
I'm not sure I can add a lot to what Lynn said, because I do think that's one of the things that I give her a lot of credit for is the change to the faculty status and the dean status, and that gives us such an ability to do things. But I also, I'm retiring, so I can say this without sounding like I'm brown nosing. But it's also really great to have a supportive provost, and I've been lucky to have two of them. So that is really good. So we went from Jill to Rogan Kirsch now to Michelle Gillespie, and it's just amazing to have that kind of environment where your boss trusts you to lead this great operation. And gives you the freedom to be able to do the work to support the university and really help advance the mission. It sounds like, well, of course they're going to do that, but there are definitely different models out there where it's much more challenging than it is at Wake Forest, and that's one of the things. And I have worked in some of those models, not as dean, but I have, that's one of the things I really appreciate here is that I feel like, because of the structure of the administration and the placement of the library, we're able to do things that other libraries can't.
I want to say one more thing about faculty status, which the faculty senate did have to approve it, and they did, but our librarians also had to approve it, and that was huge because they had to agree to do a whole lot more work in many different fields, not just their primary field, but they had to be active in the profession. They had to do research. They had to get out there and do a lot of things they'd never been called upon to do, really. And I commend them for doing that. And I'm looking at all of you up there. I thank you. You've done, and that's one of the reasons I think that so many national leaders have come from tiny little ZSR, right? I mean, Wanda Brown, president of the American Library Association. Lauren, Steve Kelly. I mean, it's just amazing, but they chose to do it, and they did it so well.
We have time for one or two more questions.
Thank you. And thank you all. I'm Chris Sears. I'm an alumni, 2001, also new to the Board of Visitors like Danielle. So rankings. I'm aware that those things matter in certain circles, especially from a national university perspective, et cetera. How does that translate, or does it, or is it important in your role as a dean in terms of how ZSR compares to its competition, for lack of a better word?
Academic libraries used to rank themselves by who has the most stuff. And that sort of has become like not really a valuable thing before, because with everything's electronic, you all have the same databases like that. I mean, special collections is the one area we can still be fairly unique, but we really try to digitize a lot of that content and share it out broadly too. So I really feel like what makes, again, we go back to that kind of service model and the people. I really feel like that's what makes us distinct, because you can have all the stuff in the world, but if people can't use it or access it or don't feel welcome in the building or welcome contacting you by chat or however they're working, it's not that bad. And we really haven't come up with a good way of measuring that, because that's what I sort of feel like, the ZSR vibe, I think, puts us in the top, because I feel like we're very approachable. We feel folks, are ready to interact with us. Students see us as a safe place to come, and a lot of them will confide in librarians for things they wouldn't say to their faculty members. And so I feel like, if you can't really put a number on that, so there's not really good ranking thing. I'll even look at John. I mean, we do investment index about how much money we're spending on libraries, but even that doesn't really tell the story.
Yeah, that question is a question for the ages. What makes a great research library? And people want a number. Tell them where do we fall, and what number do we count? It used to be stuff. It used to be collections. It used to be dollars. It used to be any number of it. Number of students. Number of transactions. And it really it's going to vary from community to community. And I think you've got such strong leadership and such great faculty in this library that you've got a really great library for your community.
One of the things I think the measurement should be is the number of complaints you receive. In my 10 years as dean, and this has nothing to do with me because they're not all doing me, I could probably count on the number of complaints I've gotten directly to me about the library on one hand.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to add was Michelle John referenced the ASERL award that we won in 2011. I don't know how many of the people in this room know, but Lauren Pressley wrote the application for that award.
We have time for one more question.
There seems to be a tsunami rolling over athletic departments with name, image, likeness, whatever that is, and the profit sharing or whatever they call it this week, and the transfer portal. I guess my question is, it may seem strange, but has the athletic department worked with or asked you to help in any way navigating that mess? Or have you had any, I'm betraying my biases, but are you working with them in any way to try and help them navigate all that stuff?
So I sit on the president's cabinet with John Curry, who has the unenviable job of being athletic director right now in this time of chaos. So not directly. I mean, one of the things, I'm looking at Joy Gamble right now, who does a lot of our teaches a lot of athletes, and Elizabeth Ellis, they do a lot of our Lib 100. One of the ways I think that we interact most with the athletic department is we have so many of their students take our courses because they find they're more successful in their classes and things like that. But that doesn't help with the NIL stuff. And I'm not entering the transfer portal. I'm after this, but so it's a. But no, that's not. I'm not sure. I'm sure that some of my folks here have done some research on particularly. I don't see any of our business. Oh, there he is. There. I'm sorry, Morgan. Yeah. So Morgan is one of our business librarians, and so maybe she's looked onto the business of athletic sums, and so might be the better source than me, but. There's not been. I'm not aware of any direct questions on it, but it's a huge issue now, and it's a huge issue not only just for, what is going to be our future, and is this really sustainable, the model that is happening right now with Division I athletics.
Okay, I think that's it. Do we have closing comments, or is that my job? I want to thank everybody for coming today, and thank particularly, it's been a while since I've seen Lynn, so this was a red letter day for me. And after we have wine and cheese next door, I'm not sure when I'm going to see Tim, so this is going to be a difficult saying goodbye for me. He's not able to attend. We have a meeting coming up in about a month, but he's got other responsibilities here. Yeah, commencement. As I said more than once, Wake Forest has been blessed with great library leaders, and I'm sure that will continue into the future. So welcome, Lauren. Thanks, everybody.
So as John mentioned, we do have a reception next door. And again, I want to also add my personal thanks. When I came up with the idea of having this kind of panel, I thought, well, they're never going to get the schedules to line up with the Board of Visitors meeting, because I just thought this is just like when Lynn was at a retirement reception for my former associate dean, Mary Beth Locke, and I was talking to her. That light bulb went after that. So, oh, he's so great. Lynn is still so engaged with libraries. To get Lynn back to talk, and I said if I could get the next dean, and at that time I didn't even know it was going to be Lauren. They said this would be like such a great kind of thing. So anyway, I'm grateful to both of them. So I feel very fortunate to have hopefully have kept the fire going that Lynn lit, and won't let it go out before Lauren gets here. All right, the next one.